Good evening, all. Tucker, welcome you all in today's webcast on behalf of. Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
ICA Bhavi Tucker on behalf of the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee ICAI. Welcome all the participants in today's webcast on effective listening skills, the power of effective communication. Today, we welcome our resource person, CA Shraddha Ravindran ma'am, and all present over here for today's wonderful webcast. The topic itself is very interesting, the effective learning skills, the power of effective communication, because in today's world, this is something, the key thing that we always need in our whole of the thing that we are presenting over to the world. And Shraddha ma'am is so good in this presenting the skills. In very short time, I would like to introduce ma'am. She is Shraddha Ravindran ma'am is a versatile finance professional with work experience from India and abroad. Specifically in US, she has done in specialties for being able to quickly adapt to the dynamic work environment, sharp technical skills, effective communication skills, creativity, and a keen eye for the detail and out of the box thinking. A qualified chartered accountant and certified public accountant from USA with more than 18 years of professional experience. Today we have a chance to listen to her that how the effective communication and the skills are helpful to us in building our communications in future. So ma'am, welcome you on the board today for giving us a brief insight on this important topic. It's very nice to hear you again, a chance to again listen to you on this topic. Welcome you, ma'am.
thank you so much, Bhavi ma'am. I hope I'm audible. I'm
Yes,
audible,
ma'am.
clear?
Yes, you are clear, loud, and comfortable.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Bhavi ma'am, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening. Namaste, everyone. It's so great to be here, like once again, with this beautiful topic on effective listening skills. And before we even go into this topic, I was just fascinated by what Bhavi ma'am said. She said this is one of the very interesting topics because effective listening is something which is very often underrated, right, in the present day world. So even before we go into the slides, or even when before we start this topic, I just remembered a very beautiful kind of an incident, which maybe can be compared with this particular topic that we are going to talk about today. So once what happened was we were planning for a family dinner, and all of us chose a very good restaurant, and we were having that restaurant in mind for some time, and we all actually had heard very good feedback about the restaurant, and their specialty was palak paneer. Okay, so many people who have gone to that restaurant earlier had always had a lot of like appreciation, praise for the palak paneer out there. So we were also determined, as always, like when you hear so many good things about a particular dish, you always want to taste it, right? So we thought, okay, tonight we are going to taste that palak paneer, and we are going to see why this restaurant is specializing in palak paneer. Okay. So, as expected, it was amazing. Honestly, the palak paneer was very good, and each of us started thinking or started debating, not at the restaurant, but after coming home, maybe the next day, we started debating like, okay, what is it that made the palak paneer really so tasty? And if we were to make a palak paneer at home, so that we can replicate that taste, right? So we can have it at home as well. So I think each of us came up with our own like idea. Like one of us said the palak was very fresh. Maybe they got it directly from the farm. That has contributed to this wonderful taste. So one of us said, no, no, it's the paneer. I think they are making it like in house. The paneer, it is very good. Or one of us said, no, maybe they are getting it directly from the dairy farm. That's the reason why the palak paneer is tasting so good. And of course, one of us will say it's the masala. They have grounded it so so well. They have used the right combination of masala. So, as always, whenever something is debated or whenever something is spoken about, so many opinions, right? As many people, as many opinions minimum. Excuse me. And like sometimes even more. So if there are four people, there could be even 16 opinions coming up, but then it will not be less than four. You know that, right? Trust me, not one of us was saying that the taste is because of the salt that was also present in the palak paneer. And I'm sure that whenever such discussions happen at home about why a particular dish is tasty, none of us will say it is because that salt that is added out there, that's the reason why the particular dish is becoming tasty. I'm sorry because my throat is a little bit not okay today. So you know what? When did I realize that we had missed on the very, very important ingredient of salt that has really contributed in its own way to the taste? When I realized that, sorry, excuse me. When I realized that we were trying to make that dish, that palak paneer, we were trying to replicate that palak paneer at home. We tried get the best palak from the market. We tried to get the best paneer. We tried to do a lot of like analysis about what is the special masala combination that works for palak paneer. Everything we did. When I say we, it's like, of course, my mom and I. So we did all the kind of like experiment. Unfortunately, it was not planned. Unfortunately, we forgot to add salt in our overexcitement, maybe. And we thought we had made that wonderful dish. We had done all the homework. We have done it beautifully well. We got it to the table. The first spoon somebody is tasting, they say, oh, this is totally tasteless. Now, what was that invisible ingredient, which is often forgotten, which is often not even thought about, but its absence makes it absolutely useless? It is salt, right? Now, this is a very common incident. It might happen everywhere. Now, why am I bringing this concept of palak paneer or salt in this discussion? You would be wondering. The reason, and of course, this is on the spot when I thought about it, because as like Bhavi ma'am was saying, listening is one of the most underrated skills in any communication, right? Whenever somebody asks us what is necessary for an effective communication or what is necessary for an effective conversation, I'm sure that all of us might think that it is like the subject of the conversation, or it is the effectiveness of the speaker, how well the public speaking skills, or like how well the command on the language, or how well the speaker is able to attract the audience. All these things we might be saying. But unfortunately, most of us would forget that that invisible ingredient in any dish, which is really the thing that matters the most, because without the salt, how much ever like fresh a palak you bring from the market, or whatever great paneer you are able to fetch from the dairy farm, or whatever great combination of masalas which you're trying to grind, you're trying to put it in the dish, tell me if that one small, seemingly very, very unimportant or insignificant ingredient is not added in that dish, will it really be worth eating? Will you be able to eat that? Not at all, right? So, listening is also like that invisible salt, invisible but invincible, which means if that salt is not there, your communication, your conversation is not going to bring the effect that you really wanted it to have. So, with that introduction, let us just go into the session, effective listening skills, which is the power of effective communication. And again, that sentence out there, listening is not waiting to reply, it is understanding before responding. And why I have put it there, we will see it in the upcoming slides. Okay, so what are the session objectives? Quickly running through it. Listening, the art and the salt, as I was just mentioning, barriers to effective listening, building that trust and why it is needed, listening to understand, not to reply. What is active and empathic listening, and what is the difference between the two? Because empathic listening is little above and beyond active listening as well. And attention, the superpower, silence, the golden tool, and we will also cover a small action plan as to how we need to practice that effective listening and how we can inculcate that practice in our everyday conversations. All right. Now, listening, the art and the salt. And as I was mentioning in the Palak Paneer example, listening or effective listening rather is to a conversation what salt is to food. It is invisible, right? When done right, nobody appreciates the presence of that salt when it is all correct. But then when it is absent, you will realize how worthless the food becomes. Similarly, effective listeners don't get their credit, or often that skill is underrated because when it is done right, you don't realize the impact it is making, but then when it is absent, you really know how the conversation has really become worthless because that essential ingredient of salt was absent in that particular conversation, right? Okay, now what do we mean by art? Now I've just given it as an acronym. Art means attention, reflection, timing the response, right? Now, attention, this cannot be overemphasized because when we say effective listening or when we even talk about listening, even going beyond like, even when you have to, maybe even when you're not actively listening, or maybe even when you're not giving that empathy in that listening, even then, even when you are half-heartedly trying to like capture what somebody is saying without attention, nothing happens. So I think the first step to become an effective or a very good listener is to pay attention. And paying attention, sorry, I'm getting a chat. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so now effective listening, as I said, is an art, right? And that art is nothing but attention, reflection, timing the response. Now, attention is giving your complete and wholehearted 100% to that particular conversation. Why are we even talking about giving your 100%, your complete? We will see in the subsequent slides because when there are quite a lot of interruptions that are happening, we know that we are really not present there completely, right? Mentally, emotionally, we are not present there, though physically we might be available there. So that is the reason why attention comes as the first factor which is essential out there. Next, coming to the R, which is reflection. Now, reflection means confirming and clarifying. Asking reflective and open-ended questions are also one, it's also one part of it. But then more than asking reflective questions, reflection means, so let me ask you something. If I were to ask reflective questions, or if I were even to reflect something, what is really essential there? First, I have to pay attention, right? First, what is someone saying? Unless I completely understand that, or I completely imbibe, absorb what somebody is saying, I might not be able to ask reflective questions, or I might not be able to confirm or clarify on something further. So that is the reason A comes before the R. And then comes timing of the response. All right. Now, in the previous opening slide, when we were talking about listening or when we were just having the heading, we said listening to understand, not to reply, right? Okay. But you know that in a conversation, now, while the intention is to listen, to understand, not to reply, but we know that in a conversation, we have to actually respond to certain things, correct? What is the difference between reacting and responding? Because you're able to see there that it is timing the response, and the explanation is that no reacting, only responding. Now, many a times we think that both are the same, right? What is the big difference? If there is an action, there is a reaction. We are reacting. So how is responding difference or it is different than reacting? Okay, I'll give you one small example and then maybe explain the basic difference between reacting and responding. I remember reading in one of the books of a very famous author where he was mentioning about his real life experience. So it so happened that the author had published his books, and it was not his first book. He was a very famous author at that time when that particular book was being published. Okay, and as always, if a person is a very famous author, you expect that when a book is released, you will have a lot of letters from your readers, your fans, where they will send you letters appreciating your work or complimenting your new creation and all that, and it becomes a habit after some point of time, right? When you are very famous and you have already received quite a lot of appreciation, compliments, all you expect is only appreciation and compliments when a new book is released. And it was no different for this particular author as well. He was also expecting that like this book will also have a lot of compliments, appreciation and all that. But it so happened that surprisingly he received a letter where maybe one of the readers was not very happy with the way the story went, or like maybe she had some kind of what do you call her own logic of why the ending of the particular story or why the sequence of the story was not moving in a very logical way or something like that. So she had written a letter to the author where she had clearly expressed her views, where she said she wasn't quite convinced with the logic or the sequence or the ending of the story. Now, this author, when he read that particular letter, he was really surprised because the fact is that he was not expecting that letter. That is the first thing. So when he read the letter, he was really furious. How can somebody like write a letter like this saying that she was not happy with the story or she was not convinced with the story? He was like so kind of like angry. He immediately wanted to write a reply letter or a reply email or whatever it is. I don't know if in those days emails were there, so maybe a letter. So he really wanted to write a reply letter. So he sat down at his desk and he started he just started writing, where he just put his pen on the paper when he heard the doorbell. Okay, so and there was some urgent task because of which he was talking to the person at the door, answered the person at the door, and then certain other things happened that he completely forgot about this writing this particular reply to that letter. It so happened that after completing all the tasks that day, he came back in the night. He saw that the letter, the plain paper and the pen, it was still there on his desk. The letter from the particular reader was also lying on his desk. He saw that and he actually thought of like sitting down and writing, but he was too tired with whatever had happened during that day. So he thought, okay, let me write this first thing tomorrow morning. So he folded the letter, he folded the plain paper, he put it inside his drawer, and he went to sleep. Next morning, he woke up, and we know always, right? All mornings, we always think we have to do so many things, but then we end up just forgetting things and just moving along. It so happened that the writer forgot about this letter incidentally for the next 4 or 5 days. After 4 or 5 days, he just opened the drawer, and there when he was searching for something else, he found that letter sitting there. He also found the plain paper and the pen. Now he thought, oh my God, I just forgot to write that reply that I desperately wanted to. He took out that paper, he started writing, but then he mentions in the book, strange enough, all that anger, all that fury that I had, I don't know where it went. Now, when I was reading that letter from that particular reader or that particular fan, I was feeling so good about it because I felt that she had her own merits. Whatever she was pointing out in that particular letter, where she had mentioned about the story not moving sequentially, and she had mentioned her thoughts about how the story could have gone better. He found it really very appealing. He thought, oh, wonderful, this person really has, she has a flair for writing. She herself can become a very great writer. And to his own surprise, he found that he was writing an appreciation letter to that particular reader where he was thanking her for her thoughts, and he was very, very honest about and very generous about his feedback, mentioning that she has it in her to become a great writer one day because she has actually shown him a different perspective how the story could have gone. And he in fact also mentions that over the period of time, that particular reader became his very great admirer, great one of the first few readers of his books. As soon as the first copy of the book is published, she picks up one and she always gives her feedback and all that. And he goes on to mention that, you know what made this difference? I would have lost a great kind of a fan, a great reader of mine if I had not postponed writing that particular reply to that letter. I am so thankful to the person who rang my doorbell that day, because if not for that distraction, I would have penned down all my fury, all my anger, and I would have posted the letter, and that would have broken a great relationship with my that reader, and I would have not gotten such a great admirer, a fan, and I would have not, and above all, I would have not seen the merit in that letter. Because you know what happens now, after explaining the difference between reaction and responding, I will just explain how the brain works in these situations. Now you would have yourself got the difference. What is the difference between reacting and responding? The time lag between the actual stimulus and the actual the action that you are giving in response to that particular stimulus defines whether it is a reaction or whether it is a response. So something that is done impulsively without thinking, without pausing, is called a reaction, whereas a response is a timed kind of a action, which in that time lag between the stimulus and the particular action, you get the time to think, to introspect, to calm down, and to understand the other side of the story, correct? So the reason why we are saying time the response, and why listening we are bringing that, is because in order to become effective listeners, we were also talking about that empathic listening, right? We will talk more about it in the upcoming slides. But first of all, in order to become an empathic listener, in order to display empathy, you have to step into someone else's shoes, understand the story from the other side of the table, and we will talk about it more. But for that, what is required? Impulsive reactions will never be able to help us become that empathic listeners which we are trying to become. Now, we will try to talk more about this when we come to the particular slide. But then, most of us think that we are displaying empathy, but we are doing more damage to the situation. How? We will look at it later. But now, we will just look at the difference between reacting and responding, because this difference is very important for us to understand, to go through the subsequent slides and the subsequent session. So now the difference, I hope, is clear based on the example that I gave you. And you are also able to kind of understand the kind of impact that timing actually plays. So from that particular situation, the writer also mentions that from that day onwards, he made it a point that he will never instantaneously respond. I mean, I shouldn't use the word respond there, instantaneously react to any conversation, letters, emails. He will take his time, he will sit back, pause, think about the kind of the response, and then after giving a brief thought about it, understand the consequences, and then start kind of giving the response. See, this has got it is just like how it has got two benefits, right? One, you are giving yourself the time to think about what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And the other advantage of this particular timing the response is that it gives the other person also the necessary time needed to talk more, correct? And usually in conversations, whenever we really are trying to build that relationship, or whenever we are trying to make that conversation very effective, what is the key to that? Allowing the other person to talk more, because we will realize that even without us asking many questions, most of the questions will be answered when you allow that person to talk. And for allowing them to talk, you have to pause, you have to really calm down. Timing the response serves that purpose as well. So attention, reflection, timing the response. Then, coming to the salt aspect. Now, again, as I said, listening to a conversation is what salt is to food. But again, the salt is also an acronym which means stop, pause there. Again, this particular pause is the same pause which we are talking about in timing the response. Always pause. Pay attention as the arch there. Listen, think before the response. So, the salt and the art of listening. With that, we will proceed. All right. So just a quick, of course, all of us understand what are the barriers to effective listening, but just a quick kind of like uh, brushing up there. So multitasking, which is one of the biggest kind of like barriers and enemies to effective listening. And in these days of technology, we always find ourselves interrupted through phones, calls, or maybe multitasking could also mean someone is talking to me and I'm trying to quickly type something on my laptop or do something like that, which is, in fact, it is a kind of disrespect to the conversation, disrespect to the listener as well, right? So, always when you think that if you have decided to give your time to someone, as mentioned in the earlier slide, ensure you give your complete time, your 100% time. You know what? I'm always reminded of that very famous saying. It is always said that the best gift that you can give someone is your time. Because when you're giving them your full time, you are giving them a part of your life that you aren't going to get back, correct? So that's the best gift you can give to someone is your time. And when you have decided to give your time by engaging in a conversation, why not give it the 100%? Avoid multitasking whenever we are getting into a conversation, because that's one of the biggest enemies to effective listening. Bias or judgment. Again, this is one of the biggest enemies towards being an empathic listener. We are going to cover that in the empathy part of it. Interruptions, of course, not just because of technology, any kind of interruptions, maybe if we are in the middle of so many things, so much of a work and all that, then I don't think effective listening is going to happen out there. So always, so here is where deciding the timing of the conversation also is very essential. If you know that today is not the day when you are able to give someone the 100% attention, the 100% like uh, the you are 100% in the particular conversation, better not to have the conversation that day, better not to schedule the conversation that day. And it isn't like kind of like denying. I have honestly seen this practically. If someone comes to me and says that they want to have a conversation with me today, and I know that today is not going to be my day because I really have too many things piled up on my plate, then I always tell them that while I would love to talk to you today, I am really afraid that if we talk today, I might be able to give you only 5 or 10 minutes. But at the same time, if we can schedule this conversation for tomorrow or whatever the day that you are planning it to have, like you decide based on your schedule, you can say that. So I usually tell them, but if we can have it tomorrow, I can give you 30 minutes. I can give you 45 minutes. So I would suggest if we can connect tomorrow. And trust me, the person will feel very glad about it because you are being honest. You really want to give your 100% to that conversation. And that particular kind of your intention is something which will be appreciated by that person rather than telling them yes, not giving them the full time. and giving them the impression that you are really busy with too many things, their kind of presence or the conversation per se is not really that important to you. That is the kind of impression you're giving, right? When you really accept to talk to them, but then you are not listening to them 100%, you are busy with your own multitasking, your phone, your laptop. Tell me, what is the impression that you're giving them? You are just giving them the impression that you are not really so important to me. I am not giving you your full attention. I really have too many things on my plate. So then think about it. Which is the best option? The person will really appreciate when you tell them, oh, I'm sorry, today I only have 5 minutes, unfortunately, but if we can connect tomorrow, we can really talk for 30 or 45 minutes. They will really feel happy. But in case it's a conversation which really is very urgent and they have to really talk today, you can always ask them, or let me know if it is very urgent. We really have to connect today. Then I will try to reschedule some of my other commitments and we can talk today. So let's make it very clear. Again, effective listening is something which is always well planned. It doesn't come as it is said, it is one of the underrated skills. People think that there isn't much practice needed, there isn't much planning needed for effective listening, right? But that's not the case. Just like how public speaking or other aspects of communication requires a lot of planning, it requires a lot of preparation, practice. Similarly, listening also requires that planning. It also requires that practice. And nothing ever comes just like that, right? We have to really practice, really plan, and effective listening also comes in that. So plan your meetings, plan your conversations properly to become effective listeners. So that is where this multitasking, this interruptions, all of these will go away. And the other 2 points of bias, judgment, and lack of empathy, these we will talk about it when we come to empathic conversations. But I just wanted to give a small example here before we even touch upon empathy. That's what I have put there. The girl who hated school. Okay, this is just a very real life example because I love connecting these real life examples with how small things can sometimes teach us a lot of like these skills, right? This really happened with the small girl who is my friend's daughter. I love giving this example to many people whenever I talk. So my friend, she is actually a very, very studious, a very, very kind of a topper kind of a person who has always consistently topped in school, college, and she always likes to be that first, that university topper kind of a person. So imagine like such a competitive person, such a kind of a person, how she would like her child or her daughter to perform. You know how people like small children, when they are first admitted in school, they are so reluctant to go to school, right? They don't like to go to school. And in fact, for many years, children cry. I still see many children outside my house, like when they are put on to the school bus, they just jump out, they cry and all that, right? But my friend, being that kind of a topper, that competitive person, you know what she did? Even before the child was ready to go to school, like 6 months before, or maybe 6 months or 9 months before the child was ready to go to school, the first day of the child's school, you know what she did? She started coaching the child. She started saying all nice things about the school. She started saying how the child will have a lot of little children of her age to play with in the school, to interact. She started saying you will learn all new things in the school. You will have teachers who will teach you new things. They will teach you subjects. They will teach you games. So she made the child fall in love with school, right? And I was there on the first day when the child was going to the school in the school bus, when other children out there were like standing and they were crying, they were hiding behind their mama, they didn't want to get into the school bus. This particular child was waiting eagerly for the school bus to arrive. And I saw that as soon as the bus came for the pickup, the child was just jumping. She couldn't like contain herself, that enthusiasm, because of all the coaching that my friend had given. She had told about all the nice things, and this child was getting into the bus. She was sitting and she was nicely waving to the my friend, and she was even trying to talk to other children, saying that why are you crying, school is such a nice place, all of us are going to have a good time, all this. Now, I was so surprised by how this child, because I honestly, till now in my lifetime, I have never seen a child being so happy, enthusiastic on the first day of school. So I was damn convinced that this child is going to be a topper, just like how my friend has always been a topper right from kindergarten until university and all that. I was thinking, oh my God, what a lovely kind of a thing. Trust me, after this incident, I visited my friend maybe after a couple of months, okay? And I was surprised. She was so kind of down in the dumps, very, very kind of like all her enthusiasm, energy was gone, very, very sad. I was surprised. Oh, what happened? In a couple of months, the world couldn't have like changed upside down, right? What has really happened? Why is she so down in the doldrums? What has happened? She showed me the notebook of her daughter. And I was surprised to see that notebook. So many readings, all reading. The child has actually, I was expecting the child to be a topper, a performer, right from day one. Because my friend, she didn't stop with, remember, I told you she was coaching the child. And coaching didn't stop to just mentioning good things about the school or mentioning about other kids out there. Coaching also meant she was teaching her all the alphabets and other things, right? So basic knowledge was there. The child knew how to write a, it knew everything. And there was no point why the child had so many red marks in the notebook. I was so surprised by this. And I was like asking my friend, you know what, have you spoken to the child? Have you really asked why the child is not like writing things properly in the notebook? My friend said, yes, I've asked everything. You know what? She is not copying things properly from the blackboard. And the teacher is also complaining to me that this child is, why is she making so many mistakes? What is the problem with your child? Why can't she write properly? So I asked her, like, have you spoken to the child? She said, yes. I asked her, why are you not copying things properly? Are you playing with other children when the teacher is writing something on the blackboard? The child is telling, no, I am not playing with anybody. Then what is the thing? Then she said, no, I actually asked her that, don't you like the class teacher? Is that why you are being naughty? Is that why deliberately you are writing all these wrong things on the notebook? And she said, no, that is not the case. Why is she making so many mistakes? And you know what? To make matters worse, my friend is saying that when the child is actually at home and when I ask her to write the alphabets, she is writing it correctly. But only in the class notebook. She is making all these mistakes and there is reading. This child, she is very naughty. She is trying to do this because she wants to trouble the teacher. I am very sure that she doesn't like the teacher. That is why she is doing this. I said, no, there is no chance like that. Why a child should actually not like the teacher? At the end of the day, you know what was the problem? The child really had problem with the vision. The child, and this was, we found out after having so many conversations with the child. The child, so if the child is able to write something very correctly at home, why is it making mistakes while copying things from the blackboard? Because the child is having vision. She is seated somewhere at the maybe backside of the classroom where the vision is not very clear for her. What is being written on the blackboard is not very clear for the child. So she is just copying whatever she is finding it. She is not making deliberate mistakes. Whatever her vision, she is copying that. So then she was taken to the eye doctor. She was prescribed glasses. And after she wore glasses, she was writing everything perfectly in the notebook. Not even one red mark was out there. So, why am I bringing this here when we are talking about empathy? Now, when we say empathy is stepping into somebody else's shoes, right? Correct? We are trying to understand the other side of the story. This is what we say when we say that we are actually showing empathy. But you know what? We are good people. We want to show empathy. But you know what is the mistake we are making? Suppose I remove my pair of shoes here and I call one of you, come, step into my pair of shoes. What is the first thing you will do? Will you not remove your own pair of shoes before you come and try to step into mine? What happens if you don't remove your pair of shoes and you try to put on my shoes with your shoes still on? Will you not tear open my shoes? Imagine how many people's emotions we are tearing apart like that. We think that we are stepping into their pair of shoes, but unfortunately, we have forgotten to remove our own pair of shoes. And what is our own pair of shoes in this case? Our own judgment, our own interpretations, our own assumptions. We don't realize that you cannot step into anyone's pair of shoes if you are having your own assumptions button on, your own interpretations button on. In this case, what happened with my friend? She really had her own assumptions. The child knows everything. The child is actually a very active learner, but still she is making mistakes, and the reason could only be because she doesn't like the class teacher, or maybe because she is trying to be naughty, or maybe because she is trying to play with her classmates when the teacher is writing something on the board. These are all our own interpretations, our own assumptions. So, what is removing your own assumptions? Did you ask the child, what is your problem? What is the issue or the problem that you are facing when the teacher is writing something on the blackboard? Why is it you are not able to copy it as such in the notebook? A straight, open ended question allow the child to talk, listen without like having your own assumptions and interpretation. A very small example, right? A very real life example which taught me that empathy is always where you switch off your assumptions, you switch off your interpretations. Only then can you step into someone else's shoes. So, this is just a precursor. We will talk more about empathy in the coming slides. Now, building the trust. Sorry. All right. Building the trust, right? Now, we often hear people saying that effective listening is needed to build that trust. In any communication, effective listening is needed to build that trust. Forget what people are saying. Let me give you one, let me ask you maybe, if I were to ask you one question, suppose I tell you, I'm not feeling so good today, so I want to see a doctor. I'm new to this place. Can you suggest any good doctors that you know of so that I can just go and just take a consultation, right? You will give me a doctor, right? Supposing you're giving me a doctor's name, you're telling me you go and see this doctor. That doctor is really too good, and you will definitely have a solution to your problem. Now, will I not have this question, or I always have more questions? So, assuming that I'm asking you a question, how, in what way is this doctor really good? Why are you suggesting this doctor? What is the first thing most of us will say whenever somebody is asking, why is that doctor good? You say that, you know what? Whatever is your problem, whatever is your whatever your grievance or pain or problem, he or she patiently listens to it. She really understands what is your concern. She first tries to completely get an understanding or a picture of what is your pain point or what is your problem, what is your suffering. And she very, very accurately addresses everything. That is the reason why her treatment is very, very effective. Now, what does this mean? Suppose I give you, suppose I'm the doctor. You come to me and you tell me, doctor, you know what? I'm having a very bad headache or I'm having a bad stomach ache. Please help me. Oh, yes, here. I just give you some medicine. Here, take it, go. Will you come to me from tomorrow? Or maybe I tell you that, you know what, this medicine, I gave it to your neighbor yesterday or maybe 4 days back. So here, take it and you will be all right. Or I just give you some kind of a medicine which has worked for 4 people. So I think it works for you as well. So if I give you that medicine, will you refer me as a doctor to somebody else? No, right? Unfortunately, you know what? This example seems to resonate with most of us. When it comes to doctors, we know that this is what we expect from a doctor, like, or even any professional, a doctor or any other professional. You expect that whenever you go to them with a problem, a suffering, a disease, you expect them to first listen to you, first listen to your problem, your pain. Always the diagnosis has to come before the prescription, right? It is not the other way around. Unfortunately, These situations, we understand that better. But when it comes to a normal conversation, we don't realize every conversation is like that. It is not just the reason why I put a stethoscope, why I put a medical symbol there is it is easier to explain that in a doctor patient example. When it comes to a doctor, each of us expect that. If somebody were to just give us a medicine, just straight away take a prescription, write down a medicine and give it to us, we wouldn't really think about going to the doctor again. We expect the doctor to listen to us patiently, ask the right questions at the right time, remember. We expect that they have to pause at the right time, ask the questions at the right time, listen to all our pains. We have to get the trust that this doctor has really understood what is our problem. Only then we get the confidence in taking the medicine, yes or no? And trust me, medicines don't work miracles. Many of us will know this, and many of you have this kind of practically you have seen this. If you don't trust the doctor, even the biggest medicine in this world, you take it, the problem will not be solved because it is psychological. Remember, when you are becoming effective listeners, you are giving that psychological confidence to the person who is talking to you, and that confidence is what is working miracles in any kind of a conversation. I remember like one of the famous like psychiatrists in the book that he had written, he one day mentioned that one particular patient of his was very, very kind of like frustrated and was almost on the end of his wits. He wanted to really end his life because he was very frustrated. He was very disappointed with life. And he mentions that the patient actually called the doctor at around 9 or 9:30 p.m. in the night, right? He called the doctor and he told the doctor, Doctor, I'm very thankful for whatever treatment you have been giving me, but unfortunately, I I think it's done for me. I don't want to live anymore. I'm just very tired with fighting this life's battle. I just want to call it quits. He just said that to the doctor. Trust me, the doctor writes in the book, I just made him talk. I never interrupted. I just asked a few open ended questions. He just went on talking, 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 talking. And by the time he actually was putting down the phone, remember, he called the doctor at 9:30 p.m. in the night. Okay. And by the time he was like putting down the phone, it was around 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. in the morning. So many hours the patient has been talking. He was just trying to talk himself out to the doctor. But at the end of the conversation, you know what the patient said? Doctor, now I'm feeling so good. I think my decision to end my life was wrong. I want to live this life. Let me see what I can do about the problems that I have at my on my hand. And I think these are easily solvable. And you know what? The psychiatrist also mentions I never gave him any solutions there. I did not tell him, like, you have to do this for your problem, you do this to this problem, you do this for this problem. I never said anything. All I did was I gave him an empathetic ear. I just listened to him. I didn't tell him, no, it's too late for me. It's late in the night. You put on the phone. I never said anything, or nor did I interrupt and tell him anything like, oh, no, no, you're taking a wrong decision. You shouldn't be doing this. You have to be brave. You have to fight. This is not a correct decision. I was not jumping to any kind of conclusions, any kind of solutions. You know what is the magic here? All human beings really are capable beings. When they are talking to us, they really are not looking for solutions in many situations. All they are looking for is empathic listening. Because when somebody is actually coming out, opening up in the conversation, solutions come to them automatically. Many times their mind will themselves tell them, okay, this is what I should be doing. They don't come to us for solutions. And many a times our job is very easy. You just have to direct them in the right direction. That is all. It is just like Google Maps. Google Maps is not going to drive the car for you, right? Effective listeners are just like Google Maps. It is not that Google Maps is going to drive the car for you. But what does it do? It tells you what is the right way for you to reach your destination, correct? And trust me, always remember, whenever you take a wrong left or a wrong right, Google Map is not going to shout at you. Google Map is not going to judge you. It is not going to tell you, I told you to go like that. Why did you come like this? Now I'm not going to guide you. You just do whatever you want. Have you ever heard of Google Maps saying that? Instead, look how wonderfully it tells you, okay, from wherever you are, what is the next path for you to come back on track? That is what effective listeners do, right? We are only in a conversation, we are only facilitating the right direction, not for the person, right direction for the conversation to move. What is the purpose of the conversation? And if at all it is getting distracted, deviated, what is the right way to bring the conversation on track? And in that process, we are also bringing the speaker on track, correct? And not cutting them by saying that, just like how Google Maps is not shouting at you, it is not cutting you out because you did not kind of take the path that it was telling you. Similarly, many a times effective listening solves the many of the problems without even we having to speak, as I earlier said, because it is building that trust. You are allowing them to talk. You are giving them the feeling that you have all my attention. So they feel encouraged to talk more. They want to like come up with all the problems or whatever conversation, whatever they wanted to bring on the table. They will come up and there'll be more clarity to it because they open up. And many a times, even the most difficult conversations will come. There'll be a beautiful solution. The solution will come very beautifully because there was a person who was listening there effectively, empathically, actively. The person did not jump to conclusions. The person did not come up with solutions even before understanding what the exact problem is. Remember, it is not just for a doctor, but in any conversation, diagnosis always comes before the prescription. And the biggest mistakes all of us do is, even before the person has started talking about what exactly he wants, we jump to solutions. It is just like taking the prescription, writing the prescription before understanding what exactly is the problem. And just like how you will not trust that doctor, you will not go back to that doctor if that happens with you. Similarly, that person is not going to come to you again if you are going to do that in a conversation, right? So that is what building the trust is all about. All right. Now, listening to understand and not to reply. Now, I had covered many of these points in the previous slide as well, but now I just want to little bit of an elaboration I want to give here. Just as I said, another question, asking more questions doesn't necessarily mean that we are actually having an effective conversation. Of course, in a conversation, whenever you want to understand what is the situation, you must ask questions. But then you know what? Effective listening is a mix of two important things: knowing where to pause, knowing where to speak. So, when I say effective and empathic listening, it is not about like always staying silent, always not talking. It is about knowing where to start talking, knowing where to stop talking, knowing where to allow the other person to talk. Now, just like how we have seen that whenever we are planning for any activity, like if I were to tell you there is an important task that is happening, and we really have to finish so many tasks. Like, for example, uh, an important family event is happening, okay, and for that a birthday party, assuming it's a birthday party, so we have a birthday party which is happening maybe tomorrow or day after, and I give you a list of 10 things that you have to take care of for making arrangements for the party, correct? So many things will be there: getting the cake, tying the balloons, sending invites to all the party attendees or whatever it is. So I give you a list of 10 tasks. How do you usually go planning about, like, for any such events? You take that list, you try to understand which is the most important task out there, maybe you will rank the task in terms of priority, right? Because not all tasks might be time consuming. Some might be like important, more important than others. Some might be more time consuming than others. So what do you usually do? You usually segregate the task according to uh, like how much time they are going to consume, or like how important they are, which, or in the sequence, like which one comes first, depending upon the dependency of the each tasks. All this planning you will do, right? Similarly, as I said, in any conversation, listening also needs that kind of a planning, that kind of a preparation. As I earlier mentioned, listening unfortunately is the most underrated skill. People kind of like prepare for speaking, not for listening. And as I indicated, listening is not all about, so effective listening is not all about staying silent all the time, though it is like silence is one of the key golden tools of listening, which we are going to see in the subsequent slide. But listening is knowing where to ask the right questions and where to pause. So just like how you will you will rank all the tasks in priority, similarly, in case of listening, you have to kind of rank your kind of silence as well as your questions, meaning how much percentage of the conversation you are going to stay silent, and what percentage of the conversation or how much of the conversation you are going to talk. And in most cases, effective listeners, this is a study, I'm not giving any statistics on my own. In a very famous study, it was noted that who are all called those effective and empathic listeners, they, it was noted that only do 20% of the talking in a conversation. 80% of the talking they allow their kind of clients, or they allow their customers, their consumers to talk, to understand really what is the requirement. And in most cases, you know what, effective listening skills solves any kind of a problem, be it business, be it family. Whenever you are that empathic listener, that active listener. So what is that 20% out there? Remember, it never said that active and empathic listeners allow the other person to talk 100% and they always stay silent. No, that is not active listening. Because trust me, if you're going to come to me talking about something and I just sit like this, I just keep looking at you, maybe I'm nodding my head, but I'm not even talking, I'm not even responding, or I'm not even asking any questions, will you think that I am actually giving you all my attention, or will you not doubt if I'm really understanding what you're saying? So trust me, while we are talking about giving the other person time to talk and listening to understand, not to reply, please remember, we are not saying that we should never talk in a conversation if we have to become effective listeners. All we are saying is that don't be in a hurry to talk, to give solutions. Understand the problem first, and for that, effective and empathic listening is needed. And when we say empathic listening, what we mean is that trying to understand the other person's story, stepping into the shoes of that other person after removing your own, which means think like how the other person will think. Don't try to think how you will think after stepping into the other person's shoes. Meaning, take out your assumptions, take out your interpretations, your judgments, then start thinking about what that person is actually thinking now. What exactly is he trying to bring about? That is called empathic listening. At the same time, knowing where to ask the right questions, knowing where to pause is a very important aspect of effective listening. So that is why we are saying not another question, but another moment of attention. And the reason why, so as I said, it's only 20% of the talking these effective and empathic listeners do. But why, when we come to a session on effective listening, you see that most of the cases we always talk about how pause, how to time your response. We are not really talking about where to ask the right questions or how to ask questions. You know the reason why? Because most of us know that, and most of us usually overdo that. It is just the pause, It is just the timing of the response that really requires that practice. Because for speaking, all of us have enough practice. All of us really are very, very cautious about whatever we are talking, the tone, everything. Usually, there is lot of preparation, there is lot of practice. Listening is the skill that usually gets underrated there, and that pause, that kind of a silence, that kind of like allowing the other person to talk, because we really want to show them that we have understood things, right? It is not that we are doing that with the wrong intention or a bad intention. We are good people. We always do that with the right intention. But then it is not enough if the intention is right. Intention alone is right. It is not enough, right? The result also should come the way that it is intended. And for that, we really have to pause. We really have to study the situation before we do anything. So that is the reason we always talk about the pause. And then, not how well you speak, but how deeply you listen. Again, we speak very well and our intention is very good. We really want to see the other person happy. We just jump to giving solutions even before understanding what is the problem. But tell me, will that really have any kind of an impact? Even before understanding what is the problem, if I'm jumping, like I want to really see the other person happy. So I want to really be of some help to that person. I am trying to like kind of in a hurry to give solutions. It's not going to help that person. It is going to do more damage. As I said, if you don't remove your own shoes, you are going to step into that pair of shoes. You are not going to help. You are going to damage them. You are tearing their emotions apart. You have not understood the problem, prescribing the wrong medicine for the wrong disease, and it's not going to help anyone. So that's the reason why we are saying that not how well you speak, but also how deeply you listen there. How deeply you listen, what is the attention that you are paying out there to the person who is talking, and all those kind of barriers that we were talking about right now have to be removed. And it is not just with the ears that you listen, but we are going to listen with the heart, with the brain working together with the ears, which we are going to see in the subsequent slides. Again, not just what is said, but the non-verbal cues. So, what do we mean by these non-verbal cues? So, let me tell you this, and most of you will already know this. Listening doesn't just mean, as I said, listening is not just about, it's not done with the ears alone. Good observation is a necessary skill of good listeners, right? And what is observation? You are very, very keen, very, very attention focused, where you read each and everything that is happening in the room out here, each and everything that is happening with the people who are seated at the meeting or whoever is in conversation with you. And what are some of the non-verbal cues that we actually, as good listeners, we can observe? The tone of the voice, the body language, the facial expressions, the gestures, the smile, right? All these things are non-verbal cues and they actually mean a lot. You can actually make out from the tone of the voice what is actually the kind of feelings that the person is coming from, right? All of us know this. You know whether the person is really in deep trouble, the person is like normal, or whether they are super enthusiastic. All this comes from these non-verbal cues. And without good observation, good listeners can never be born or can never be made. So observation is one of the key skill, and that is the reason why connect the dots. We said no interruptions. Please have all your phones aside. Please have all your laptops aside, because more than what is said, what is not said actually gives you the real clues to what exactly is going to be discussed out here. So always be observant, and good observation is one of the key factors that differentiates a person who is not so good a listener and a person who is an effective, active, and empathic listener. Next point, not interrupting but mirroring. What do we mean by mirroring? So here is it. Mirroring means sometimes the reason why I have put it there is this might not be relevant in all kind of conversations, but in certain kind of conversations you might have to confirm your understanding with the person who is talking. Mirroring is nothing but a deep way to connect with them in the form of saying, just paraphrasing or kind of reflecting their kind of feelings or their questions. Like, for example, if somebody were to tell me, so this is what happened to me, and I'm really feeling very, very confused about what is the next step I need to take or what is the next thing I need to do. In those situations, if I were to kind of mirror their feelings or ask reflective questions, what I will do, maybe I will say, okay, so I understand that this is what has happened, and you really are getting not too sure about the next step you have to take. Am I right? So, are you looking for some kind of solution or suggestions from me? Why is this step needed? Why is this step needed? Because, as I said, many a times the speaker might not be looking for solutions from you. Many times, all they need is just want to talk to someone. In those situations, really coming up with any solution or suggestion is going to be a kind of a disrespect to that particular person. Sometimes it might also break the relationship. So, always before offering any kind of a solution, in cases where a person is expressing some confusion or expressing some sorrow or expressing some kind of worry or anything like that, before you even start offering any solution, mirroring technique will really help, because now what have you done? You have asked them for the permission, or you have asked them for, you're really reconfirming, are you looking for any kind of solutions or suggestions from me? So if they are saying yes, then they have given you the permission to offer solutions or offer the right steps for them to proceed. So in that case, you are not crossing boundaries, correct? You are not kind of trying to give them kind of free advice or anything, which it will be interpreted that way. If somebody is just talking to you, maybe they are just telling you what has happened and they are not looking for solutions from you. But without asking this kind of a question, if you were to give them all these kind of solutions, that might not look good. So this kind of mirroring technique is helpful for certain conversations where maybe it is little emotional or where they are really looking for solutions or not, you want to confirm. So that is why I have put there. And again, not processing but pausing. You know why this is very important? Because whenever we are trying to listen with the intention to reply, you know what happens? See, it is a very, very deep thing. It isn't so kind of as simple as it looks. You know, the human mind, the human sense organs, the way it works, it isn't so simple as it looks. What happens when you start listening with the intention to reply? Continuous processing of information is happening here. You keep processing information here. So, in that, what happens in that particular situation, all your energy is taken up here where you are mentally running a picture because you are not, so there is a kind of a indirect judgment that is happening in your mind, right? Because you want to reply to what the person is saying. So you are actually taking that information, but instead of trying to understand the information as it is, again, what I said, you are like trying to step into their shoes, having your own shoes on. Your mind is very busy, kind of processing all that information out there. So what happens there? If that is the case, two, three things are very risky out there. One, you will miss what exactly the person is saying. Sometimes what happens, the previous sentence, the previous things that the person has said, your mind is still processing. So the current sentence or the current words that the person is talking, you might miss ending up. So you don't get a complete picture because here the processing, judgment, everything is happening. One, right? Next thing, your own energy, which you should use in like understanding the situation, or if the speaker is trying to look for a solution, your energy is needed to come up with that solution. Even no energy will be left because all the energy goes here in trying to process without even understanding what the person wants from you. If you keep trying to process the information here, unnecessary kind of energy goes away in that, right? And whatever the mind thinks or overthinks, so much of an energy is used up, and the sense organs become dull during the time when too much processing happens here. When mind keeps processing information, the ears will not listen to or hear what exactly it needs to. The eyes might not observe what exactly it needs to observe. you might not become very attentive because your mind is very busy. So that is the reason why processing should not happen. And pausing really helps you come out of that processing mode. And again, one extra pause can turn listening into leadership. Remember, effective listeners are always effective leaders. Leadership skill, one of the essential leadership skill is active empathic listening. In fact, if I were to rank the listening skills in kind of like ascending order, you will see that effective listening is one, active listening is two, empathic listening is the highest forms of listening where you are trying to listen from the other person's perspective. And most great leaders of our times are empathic listeners, not just effective listeners. They are effective, active, empathic listeners. So one of the biggest leadership traits is listening, and for that it requires consistent and great practice, just like any other leadership skill. All right, now coming to active and empathic listening. Now, as I was giving a small hint in the previous slide, if I were to rank the listening skills in order, most people think that active and empathic listening are one and the same. But it is not the case. I just told you, right? What is the difference? So, I told you that if I were to rank the listening skills in ascending order, then first comes your effective listening. Then comes your active listening. Third, empathic listening. All right. So effective listening is just being, so if I were to just give you more, elaborate on how they are different, first let's take effective listening. Effective listening is where you really are physically present in the room and you are trying to avoid all kind of interruptions. As we were talking about the barriers to interruption, it is where you are trying to avoid all kind of interruptions. You are really giving the other person the kind of a feeling that they have your attention and you are really putting away all the distractions. You are actually maintaining a proper like contact, eye contact with them. You are looking at their face. You are really giving them all your time and attention. Very good. That is effective listening, right? And what is active listening? It is like one step higher where you are kind of, as I indicated, the fourth point of the last slide where I was talking about mirroring, right? Where active listening is where you really try to not just trying to like listen to them actively, but when it comes to like asking them for what exactly is their requirement, or sometimes if they are telling you about something, reconfirming your understanding about, okay, I understand this is what you are trying to say, or something like that. You are just trying to reconfirm your understanding, paraphrasing what they are saying, just to be sure that this is what they are trying to tell you. That is active listening, and that is one more, it is one step ahead of the effective listening, correct? The highest of all, empathic listening, right? Which we were talking about being a great leadership skill. And while listening itself requires practice, it requires preparation, imagine how much of practice, how much of conscious kind of like preparation, practice, empathic listening really requires. Just think and think about how leaders really invest their time and energy to become empathic listeners. If today they are being called great leaders because they are empathic listeners, then what is the kind of work, the homework, the hard work, the practice that would have gone into like that kind of empathic listening for what they are today, right? And as we said, what is empathy? We have already covered it in the previous slides, right? The dictionary meaning of empathy says stepping into someone else's shoes. But as I indicated, what is that stepping into someone else's shoes is something which we need to be clear about. Because we are good people, we want to show empathy. But unfortunately, we forget that we have our own shoes on before we are stepping into the shoes of somebody else's, like before we step into the shoes of someone, right? We forget that. And in that Forgetfulness, we are tearing apart the shoe, we are tearing apart the emotions, and we think that, oh, I showed empathy, but the person really didn't appreciate. But the only thing we forget is we have forgotten to remove our shoes on. So the next time when we are trying to show empathy, please check if you have removed your own shoes, which means removed your own judgments, your assessments, your interpretations, your preoccupations, all that. Because with that, it is just like wearing your own pair of shoes and stepping into someone else's shoes, right? Why empathy? Why do we even need empathy? Very basic question. We might think that why do we need empathy? And many times, you know what happens? Empathy is often confused with sympathy. Empathy is not sympathy because sympathy also is a kind of a judgment, and not many people will appreciate sympathy because sympathy gives them the feeling that they are much on a lower plane than you. So people will not appreciate sympathy, and people will definitely see it as a judgment. But empathy means there is no judgment. And you are actually seeing yourself on the same plane as the other person, right? And remember, empathy doesn't mean you are validating something that has happened to them, or you are trying to say that. So, because when you're trying to validate, or when you're trying to say that something is right, something is wrong, it's again judgment. Empathy doesn't mean validation. Empathy just means I understand how you are feeling. To give you a simple example, someone wears a pair of shoes. The shoe is pinching them, right? It's very painful. They tell you that they are unable to walk, their legs are paining. You take those pair of shoes, and when you wear them and you try to walk a mile on that in that pair of shoes, you also feel that the shoe is pinching you. You feel the pain. So now you understand how that person will feel, right? This is all empathy is all about. It doesn't mean to say that walking in that pair of shoes is right, walking in that pair of shoes is wrong, or why are you walking in that pair of shoes? All that. No assessments, no judgments. It is just that I understand how you are feeling because I'm able to either visualize the pain, visualize the feeling, or I have undergone the pain myself some time back. Or maybe I have experienced it in the past. But not all pains or not all feelings you have to have experienced, right? Sometimes you can visualize how somebody is feeling. That is empathy. And it is understanding the story from the other side of the table without having your own judgments and assessments. So that is why empathy is important. Because why is it important? Now, giving one more example, the same doctor patient example. Unless the doctor is trying to understand how you are feeling, it is not about how the doctor is feeling, right? Right? What exactly is the symptom, or what exactly is the pain that the patient is feeling? That exactly is what the doctor needs to know to prescribe the medicine, or even if not prescribing a medicine, maybe in a doctor patient example, a prescription is mandatory because that is why you are going to the doctor for. You are looking for the solution there. But in all conversations, maybe you don't go to somebody for a solution, or somebody doesn't come to you for a solution. What is the objective of that particular conversation? Correct? Accordingly, empathy is needed for you to understand what exactly even the other person is looking for. Even for that, empathy is needed. Remember, when we are trying to ask the person, so I understand the mirroring technique when I was mentioning, when we are trying to ask the person, so I understand this is what is happening, and are you looking for any solution or suggestions from me? What are you doing there? Are you not trying to be empathic there? You are first trying to understand what exactly is the requirement out there, and how will you really inculcate or cultivate that empathy without first listening to the person, right? Whether or not you have to give solutions in a conversation, what is the purpose of the conversation? For you to understand the purpose of the conversation, understand the intention of the conversation, this what exactly the speaker is looking for from the conversation, you first have to be an effective listener. Then comes being an active listener. And the last part of it is being an empathic listener. And remember, and when you reach the stage of being an empathic listener, you automatically become an effective listener. You automatically become an active listener. Because without being an effective and active listener, you cannot become an empathic listener, isn't it? When I say that, I am actually like, maybe if I tell you, I am studying in eighth class, when it is understood that I have completed my sixth and seventh, and whatever, like, I have, like, whatever the syllabus or the portions that are there in sixth and seventh, I will know it, because without that, how will I come to my eighth class? Similarly, empathic listeners are always effective listeners, always active listeners, and empathy is needed even to understand what is the purpose of the conversation. Remember, empathy is not linked to providing solutions to the problem or anything. That is not the intention, because many times people think empathy is only needed when you want to offer solutions to problems. Not at all. Even to understand what is the requirement, what is the purpose with which somebody has come to you, why are they talking to you, what is the purpose of the conversation, even for that you need empathy, right? Okay, now the connection, the left and the right brain. Now, why am I writing it there? Why I have put it there? Let me give you one small example of this left and the right brain and the connection, because this becomes very important for active and empathic listening, right? All right. Now, all of us know, as I said, this human body, this human brain, it works in wonderful ways, right? It's not so simple. Often I have wondered the magical ways, the miraculous way how the human body works. It's just amazing. And just mention, being a level 2 certified yoga coach myself, when I practice yoga or when I take these sessions, I all the more admire how wonderfully the body works, the mind works, how this is interconnected, correct? And why this left and right brain, the connection, why is it important, especially from a listening perspective, empathic perspective? Okay, let me give you one small story, and with that, we will discuss that further. I remember few years back, in one particular state of India, there were a lot of bus accidents. I mean, normal government buses, lot of accidents were happening. Okay, so what happened was, accidents happening, definitely some steps are needed to ensure that the drivers are not like driving very fast or driving very rashly. Steps are needed. So what happened, there was like a kind of a training camp organized by the government, and the drivers were, I mean, drivers means they have already learned driving, they already know all the basics of driving, the do's and don'ts, everything they know. So it is not that somebody is going to teach them about how to drive, how not to drive, but in the camp, they were given all this kind of knowledge about, like, rash driving is very harmful. You actually have to be very careful while driving. So, do's and don'ts, what you need to do to check your speed limit, all that was straight. Did it have an impact? No. The number of accidents did not come down at all. It still kept happening. It was very kind of, how many ever camps like you do, you tell them what are the advantages, disadvantages of skillful driving, what are the kind of negativities of rash driving. Nothing is happening, right? They tried a different approach. You know what they did? It's very beautiful, like, kind of a, according to me, I was really admiring that kind of a solution. They said each driver has to keep his family photo before the in the dashboard when they start the bus. So permanently they have to keep that photo there throughout when they are driving, and whenever in the, like, they start the bus, they have to keep the photo, and they have to keep it throughout whenever they are driving, wherever they are taking the bus. Drastically, the accidents reduced. It was very surprising, right? Statistics very surprising. So many kind of camps were organized. People were told, they were given all kind of analytics about how many accidents have happened, what are the great advantages of driving skillfully, driving slowly. Then they were given all the knowledge or the gyan about the rashful driving, everything. Nothing worked. But a simple solution, keep your family photo, keep the your family photo, wife and children, you, your wife, children, that family photo you have to keep on the dashboard of the bus when you start the bus, and it has to be there throughout when you are driving. A simple solution. It worked miracles. It worked wonders. How do you think it worked? How do you think it worked? You know what? That is where the left and the right brain, the connection comes there. The human brain, many of us know this, right? The left brain deals with all analysis, rules, logics, everything. And you know what happens in the right brain? The right brain is more about emotions, the finer things of life, imagination, visualization, emotions, love, music, all these things. It is the, what do you call, the jurisdiction of the right brain. And though we think that analysis, reasoning, logic is all about, that is all we need to be successful in life. The human brain always works with this side, the right brain, which is that emotions, that imagination, that visualization. The connection with the right brain is what is required in building relationship or in any conversation or in any success story. And in this example that I just gave, when the camp was being organized and people were being given all statistics about number of accidents or all the kind of logic about safe driving, bashful driving, they were only trying to interact with their left brain. So there is no great impact. Maybe if there are 100 people in the room to whom you are talking about statistics, you are talking about logistics, I'm sorry, statistics and all these logic and all these things, out of 100 people, maybe you are connecting with two or three people. Or even if you are talking to one person, when you are talking about all these kind of statistics, logics, mathematics, interpretation, rules, you are connecting with their left brain. The impact will be very less. They, if you are telling some 10 things, they might remember one or two. Or sometimes they might even ignore whatever you're saying because no connection happens there. But when the drivers were told, keep your family photo on the dashboard. What happens there? Why, without saying anything, the accidents have come down? Because whenever you look at that photo, you are getting connected with your right brain. And there you realize that you have a family waiting for you at your home. Nobody is telling you drive slowly, don't drive rashly. But then when you are touching the right centers on your right brain, you automatically know what you should be doing because that is the miracle of the human mind, right? When you are actually able to touch the right centers in the brain, miracle happens. And it's actually not a miracle, it is just the power of the mind. And that is where all these visualization techniques and all these things are always targeting the right brain, because the right brain is where connections are built, the right brain is where relationships are built, the right brain is where you suddenly get a brainwave of a solution. How? Because in the right brain you are actually getting that kind of ideas out there, right? So why did I give this example right now? Just like how any amount of logic, any amount of statistics where you're only trying to target at the left brain is not going to work for you. But keeping a family photo there, you have touched the kind of right brain, you have touched, built a connection with them. You have helped the drivers build a connection. You have told them that we are telling you for your own good. You have a family who is waiting for you out there. So you have to be careful while driving. Then you don't need to even tell them. They will always follow the right kind of driving speed. Correct? Similarly, empathic listening in a conversation is connecting you with the right brain or the emotional side of your the person who is talking. And again, you remember a few slides back, we were talking about building of the trust. You think trust will be built if you only target at the left center of the brain? If you keep telling statistics, if you keep telling all the logic, giving them all the rules, regulations, this, that, giving them whatever you know of, it's not going to work, right? Always building the connection with your speaker first. connection with the audience first is needed. And again, that is where the left and the right brain come into picture. We are not saying that statistics or logic or rules and regulations are not important. Don't get that wrong. We are not saying that. But what we are saying that is that unless you build that connection, you activate the right brain, whatever you talk about logic or statistics is not going to work. But once you build that connection, then talk about whatever statistics or logic or whatever you're going to say, it's going to work because you have laid the strong foundation. Remember, when the foundation is strong, you can start building anything out from there. So the foundation starts with that emotional connect. So that is the reason why you should always be an empathic listener, because you are trying to connect with them. And this is the next example what I've given there. It is just like driving fast on the wrong route. If you are just going to focus on providing solutions, providing the statistics, providing all that you know, doing all the talking, then it is just like, oh, you want to really impress them. You want to really be that kind of a dashing kind of an impressor. It is just like driving your car on a high speed, but then it is going on the wrong route. Your destination is never going to come. Maybe it is even on the opposite route where your destination is never going to be in sight because you have lost that connection. And many times they, like when you don't offer that empathic listening to listening skills to your the person who is talking or to your audience, what happens? No trust is built. There is no connection. They might not even be listening to what you're saying. You didn't listen to them. They are not listening to you. So that is not very surprising, right? Because as I said, what happens is when you now going by my own example, when you put that photograph there, that on the dashboard, what really happened? You didn't tell them anything, but they when they look at that photograph, what is the connection that the photograph is building with them? It is telling them that it is for your own good that you are driving at the right speed. You are not doing it for anyone else. You are doing it for your own good. Correct? Similarly, an empathic listener gives that impression to his speaker or to the audience that I am here for your own good. I am giving you my full attention and I will really do whatever is your intention with which you have come to this conversation. Correct? And going one step ahead with that mirroring technique where you are trying to ask them, are you really looking for any solution or suggestions from me? What exactly? See, trust me, if I am going and talking to a person and they are very, very effective listener or an empathic listener, they are listening to me. And in between, when I'm talking about something, they are really asking me, okay, I understand this is what it is. Are you looking for any suggestions or any feedback from me or any solutions from me? What is the kind of impression I will get about that person? Will I not feel very good? Will I really not feel, oh, anytime I really have any kind of problem or any, whenever I want to speak with or whenever I have any challenges, I really want to come to this person because this person really understands. This person really knows how, like, what exactly I'm looking for. This person really wants to do whatever I'm looking for. He doesn't come up with whatever he knows, or he doesn't like really bring everything he knows to the table. He first tries to understand what I am looking for. Then he is asking me what exactly is my expectation. Then he is coming up with necessarily like what I'm looking for. Tell me, isn't it what we will be looking for when we are talking to somebody? Same thing. That person will also be looking for that, right? And putting it in professional practice, when we are doing our risk assessment procedures, when we are trying to understand the client, the entity, the environment, are we not supposed to be effective, empathic listeners? Unless we try to understand what is the client's business, what is the client's control environment, how are we supposed to like even plan and perform our audit procedures? So I think empathic listening is a very important ingredient in any profession, be it a medical profession, being our own profession. So the matter of fact here is, if we are trying to bring everything that we know to the table without understanding what exactly is the current situation out there, what exactly is the problem out there, or what exactly is the issue out there, we are not going to be successful. And for that, we first have to build that connection. And with the connection, we will not be driving on the wrong route, like what I have put here. We have to reach our destination. And for that, driving fast is not the criteria. It is driving on the right direction in the right way. So, that ways, active and empathic listening is a very essential congruent or constituent of that particular conversation. So, active is empathic listening. We have already explained like what is effective listening, what is active listening, and what is empathic listening, right? And the quote I have put there, the heart has its reasons, which reason knows not of. Why I have put it there? Because it is not what you think. Looking at something, looking at a conversation, you might assign so many reasons, but then actual reasons might be quite different. And that is why empathy is needed. Moving on. Okay, this is just a quick, this slide is just a quick refresher. So when we say we are being attentive in a conversation, attention, the superpower, what do we really mean? And how do you really assess how somebody is being attentive in a conversation? Or how do we actually show that we are being attentive in a conversation? It is, of course, our body language, eye contact, our posture, our expression. I've also seen like, see, I think I'm visible on the video. I'll just show. If I am sitting like this and listening, this is one way of, this is also one way of listening. But then in case of serious, this is just a casual conversation. I can sit like this. I can sit like this. I'm listening. But in case of some serious conversations, we have also seen people lean forward like this. They lean forward. They come like this. People are seated like this and they lean forward like this when you start talking. So that's also one of the indicators, body language, that you're actually giving them all your attention, right? Maintaining eye contact is very important and that can never be overemphasized. Expressions, posture, body language, each and everything plays an important role, and we have to be really mindful of all these things when in a conversation. And that includes avoiding interruptions, which is the second point. Avoiding interruptions and being fully present out there, switching off your mobile, putting it on silent mode, putting away with your laptop. In fact, I always tell people that do a finger exercise when you go into a conversation. And what is that finger exercise? Pick up your mobile, put it off. Touch your laptop like this, close it. Do that finger exercise. So that's very important, because putting away interruptions, giving the impression to the other person that you are there for them completely, and something that you're doing, give your 100%. So that way, avoiding interruption. Asking the right questions, again, very important. Asking the right questions, but also pausing at the right time. And as I said, effective listeners, active listeners, empathic listeners, they know the right mix. Just like the palak paneer example, now going to a different perspective of it. Earlier we spoke about salt, but now coming to a different example, the right combination of the masalas definitely make the difference, right? Any palak paneer, if someone knows the trick of what is the right combination of the masalas, that makes the real difference between a real tasty palak paneer that gets that top position to an average or an ordinary palak paneer. Similarly, in case of listening, what is the secret sauce? Knowing the right mixture of when to stay silent and when to talk, asking the right questions, staying silent, the optimum mix. If you do one thing, don't do the other, definitely it is not going to be effective, and it comes with practice. There is absolutely no need to worry. Just like anything, and I often give this example, often the example that I love. All of us have learned bicycle as kids, right? Anyone who has learned bicycle perfectly the first time? No one, right? We know that falling down and then again trying to ride it is part and parcel of this exercise. I know when I started learning my bicycle for the first time, my knees used to be completely hurt all the time, full of scars, full of wounds. But I used to feel so proud. I used to flaunt my knees. I used to show it to my friends and tell them, you see, all this indicates that I'm trying. My wounds here, my scars, my all these marks are my pride actually, because this is indicating that I've been trying. If you don't ever try to ride a bicycle, you will not have any wounds. But that is not our intention, right? Our intention is to learn. So it's okay. It is not that in the first conversation you will know what is that optimum mix. But it is good. You're trying. Failure is an indication that like we are trying to do something new, we are learning something new. So feel proud, like just like how your wounds are your indicators that you're learning bicycle, feel proud about it. Similarly, that's okay, the right optimum mix, where to do when, it always comes with practice, and no two audience are alike, no two conversations are alike. It always comes with experience, with practice. So we have to keep trying and allowing the other person to talk more. This can never ever be overemphasized. So that is like a short brochure. Okay. Now, the second part of attention, power. We said attention is the power, right? And again, that power acronym. What is that power? What could attention do in effective listening? Simply put, prevents misunderstanding and confusion, opens up the conversation, right? Wins their trust, enables empathy, reduces conflict and errors. Again, none of these need more explanation because we have already seen all these in the preceding slides. But still, one of the very, very basic things we can do to respect the conversation, to respect the audience, to respect the speaker is give them our undivided attention. And I think that is the first step in becoming effective listeners, then active listeners, then empathic listeners. So, undivided attention is the most visible form of respect in any kind of communication. All right, silence, the golden tool. A very important aspect of listening is silence, right? Being silent. To some extent, we have touched upon this in the various previous slides. We were talking about pausing, we were talking about silence. Now, why is silence needed? Again, here we have put some reasons why silence is important. We will discuss more. So, as we always have seen in the earlier slides, we saw that it encourages the other person to open up, because when you are giving them that space, again, silence also means pausing. So, it is, as I indicated, that pausing, that time lag between the actual stimulus and the kind of response that you're going to provide. In this time lag, it is giving you as well the time to think, to explore, to introspect. At the same time, it was also encouraging the other person to do his talking, to open up more. And as I indicated, in any conversation, when the other person is really talking, most of the facts actually they are coming out on their own without you having to ask many questions. And you know what? There is a difference. Maybe if you ask more questions, even then maybe you will get the facts. But when the person is talking on his own, even then the facts come out. But there is a difference. You know what is the difference? I'll give you one example. You're traveling by bus, and imagine that all the seats are full. Okay, ordinary town bus. Okay, and you are also sitting on in one seat. You're sitting on one seat, and otherwise there is no space for anybody to sit there. All seats are full, but there are no passengers standing. Imagine. Okay, one person gets into the bus in the next stop. Now he or she comes to you and says that, will you please get up? I want to sit. I am feeling very tired. Or they say that maybe I have a pain or something. I want to sit. Please get up. You will still feel that, okay, the person wants to sit. Let me give away my seat. You will get up. That person maybe got the seat. Okay. This is scenario one. Scenario two, same situation. All seats are filled up. You are seated on one of the seats. Next stop, old person or somebody, like imagine an old person, or maybe somebody who really needs that seat. Visibly, you know that this person might need this seat. They are getting into the bus. As soon as they get into the bus, you get up on your own. You tell them, you please have this seat, and you step away. This is scenario number 2. Which of these scenario you will feel very, very happy? See, the scenario is the same. Even in the first scenario, you gave up your seat for somebody who really wanted, who really was in a need of that seat, honestly. But you did not do it on your own because maybe you did not observe, or maybe it was not very visible. That person came to you. They requested, saying that, can you please give me your seat? You got up. Even then, you had no regrets or anything. You got up, you gave your seat. Second scenario, you were observant. You saw that the person is really in need of the seat more than you. You got up on your own. You gave them your seat, and then you walked away and you stood there. Trust me, or I believe that most of you would tell me the second scenario is where you will feel really very happy. Why? The second scenario is where you will feel very, very happy. Why? Because in the first scenario, somebody asked you and you gave it. You don't feel good, right? Somebody is asking and you are telling something or you're giving something. Not very good. Oh, he asked me, I gave. Not feeling good. But here, you gave it on your own accord. That is human psychology. You ask many questions, somebody gives responses. Even then, maybe you will get all the facts. But as far as the feeling is concerned, the emotional connect is concerned, remember, we spoke about the emotional connect, the right brain, how the human mind works. That psychological comfort, safety never comes when somebody is just giving you responses based on questions. When you are being an empathic listener, you are allowing them to talk, allowing them to open up. There is a great feeling in them. Remember, it is that feeling, that emotional correct, which is the foundation for that confidence, that trust to be built on you. Without that, the feel good factor is absent there. You are asking so many questions, based on that you are getting responses. Still, left brain, all tick marks, all logic is there, all facts are there, figures are there, statistics is there, but the emotional connect is absent. So remember, always encouraging the other person to open up works more than asking questions and getting the answers. And most of the times, when you allow them to talk, you don't have to ask questions. Whatever questions you have in mind, more than that will be answered. So, encouraging the other person to open up is only possible when you are silent. Both can't keep talking, right? That pause, that silence is always needed. And silence speaks, as I have put there. It says, you have my full attention. It is giving you all the kind of uh, the foundation for you to get all your information. And remember, not talking, it doesn't mean that like we are not exchanging communication, right? As I said, there are so many non-verbal cues out there in a conversation that is happening. You lean forward, you give them your whole attention, you look at them in the eye, you maintain that eye contact. All of this is actually telling them that you have my full attention. Actions speak louder than words. So that's the way you are gaining their confidence. And then it is the magic wand that changes reactions to responses. As I said, that pause between the stimulus and the response. That pause, that silence is the magic wand which is doing that abracadabra, gilly, gilly, gilly. And all your reactions are going to become responses. And just like that writer, were immediately taking the pen and trying to write a kind of a reply where all your fury, all your anger, it just kinds of like becomes a screen which is not allowing your kind of it becomes a kind of a mist in front of your eyes, right? Because when emotions are riding high, the responses will not be appropriate because you don't really see the true picture. So immediately answering after somebody is talking is definitely not going to help us. So that silence is actually helping us properly come up with the response required for the situation. Beautiful, isn't it? And then this is just one beautiful thing which most of us would have observed. Listen and silent have the same letters, right? The same alphabets are out there. It is just spelled in a kind of a jumbled way. Maybe the makers of the language had a reason for that, right? Because unless you are silent, you aren't really listening. So maybe that's the reason why it is so. I just put it there because I was really fascinated by that. And then again, redirection of energy to understanding the situation, correct? Very important here. As I said, when more of the time is spent in processing here, too much of processing is happening. What happens? Too much of processing, which means no energy is going towards understanding the situation. So that is the reason why effective listeners, empathic listeners always practice silence, because they want to really understand the situation, conserve that energy towards understanding the situation first before they can even introspect on what they have to talk. Stability needed for the conversation. Why is a stability needed for a conversation? Again, that's the reason why I have put that quote there. The depths of the ocean are silent and stable, right? So when you look at the ocean, all the waves, all the noise, it is always at the top. And whenever we talk about the ocean, do we always refer to the waves? No, right? Always the kind of metaphor or the simile which whenever we think of an ocean, what is the immediate thing which comes to our mind? The ocean is deep, it is the depth. That is what always comes to our mind, right? We don't think about the waves, though when we go to the beach, maybe we look at the waves. And I've often wondered, like when as a child, when I've gone to the beach, I used to think like these waves, you sometimes you see like such a big wave that comes. I used to think that that wave will actually come and it will like kind of never recede and it will come and wash out the whole city. All these things I used to think as a child. But then as I started growing, I realized, what is holding that waves back? It is the depth, the stability that the real kind of underwater of the ocean provides. That is the reason why, in spite of all the noise, in spite of all the disturbance created by the waves, the ocean is still stable because the foundation is strong. So similarly, how much ever like in a conversation, it could be that the subject of discussion could be very, very serious, or it could be something which really is very, very crucial, whatever it is, the silence, the empathic listening which we are offering in that particular conversation is the stable foundation that will help us take the conversation in the right direction. So it is not about what is the subject of the conversation. It is not about how crucial it is, or not about how many people are sitting there as an audience, whether it is one person, multiple people, whatever it is, for any problem, for any kind of a conversation that comes to us. I think the basic thing which can really take the conversation in the right direction, move it with stability, is that empathic listening. Seen so many things about effective listening, active listening, empathic listening. We have seen about what is empathy and like why effective listening is important. We have seen so many examples. We have also seen about like the right brain, left brain, the connection, everything is good, right? But unless we really start practicing, and as I said, listening, empathic listening is a very essential constituent of leadership. It's a very essential trait of leadership. And just like all leadership skills require preparation and practice, similarly, listening is also a skill that requires a lot of practice. And I have come up with a small kind of an action plan which can help us practice effective listening. And I would really encourage you to practice this so that it will be very helpful in all conversations. So, becoming a conscious listener, right? So, what we do, choose any one conversation per day to start with. And it really need not be a business conversation to start with. You can even start with any informal conversation. It is up to you which conversation you want to pick up. During that conversation, what you do, keep track of your attention, your depth of listening. How long are you able to stay focused on what exactly the speaker is saying? And I think this comes with practice. And whenever you think, so there's a small trick out there. Whenever you think you are losing that attention, that focus, just focus on your breathing for a minute. You will feel that your mind is getting back to the present moment. And this is not just with any conversation, it's a very easy way of bringing your mind back. If your mind is wandering, if it is just processing too much of an information, the best way to bring your mind back is to focus on inhalation and exhalation for a minute, because that way it is bringing your mind back to the present moment. And that is also practiced in mindfulness, all those activities, mindful activities, mindfulness eating, all that activities, when they do, they practice concentrating on the breath, because that has got the capability to bring you back to the present moment immediately. That is consciousness, shifting your consciousness. That is why we said become a conscious listener. Say anything when you first start with, you have to consciously do it. After a point of time, it becomes your second nature, right? So keep track of your attention and depth of listening. And if your mind wanders, snap and bring it back. Focus on your breathing, whichever way you want to adopt. Some people have this habit of snapping and bringing their mind back to the present moment. Focus on your breathing, bring your wandering mind back to the present moment. Keep a track how long you are able to focus. Then note the interruption, the pauses, and the silence. So, how many times you actually, and when I say interruptions, pauses, and silence, we are talking about ourselves, we are not talking about the other person. Keep a note of your how many times you tried to interrupt in the conversation, or how many times, like when the other person had just finished talking, you did not pause for a minute, you just started giving solutions, or you started reacting instead of responding. Keep a track of that. And again, the fifth point, where we are saying keep a tracker or a journal to take quick notes to record your experiences. And this really need not be at the time the conversation is happening, because it might not look very good if you're sitting in a conversation and just writing something. Of course, you can take notes of the meeting, but these experiences, if you're writing, it might not look good. So you can keep this journal tracker immediately after the meeting. You can quickly jot it down. At the end of the day, you can elaborately record your experiences, what went good, what didn't go so well with respect to effective listening. Then this is a very, very beautiful way of working through any kind of action plan. Identifying one accountability partner, if possible, of course, you can identify a friend, a mentor, or a coach to work with you on the above journey. And when we say work with you on the above journey, it is just to discuss your progress, to discuss your experience. You can just whatever you have journaled, or whatever the tracker that you're maintaining, you can always talk to them, because if they know you very well, a friend or a family member, they know you very well, they might even be able to observe your progress very well, so they might give you very good feedback as well. So that will be very effective. Track your progress every month. Have a kind of an action plan where every last Saturday of the month or every last Sunday of the month, go through the journal. If you're tracking down something, journaling something, but you're never referring that journal, then that really isn't going to help you much, right? Keep that journal, track that journal every Saturday, Sunday. Feel how good it is for you. Note the improvement in the quality of the conversation. As the quality of your listening improves, you will feel that the quality of the conversation is just being very, very good. So you will understand that you are getting that leadership trait of empathic listening out there. And again, listening is not just with the ears, but it is with the heart. And remember, when the heart listens, wisdom arrives in style. And how do you listen with the heart? It is being a very empathic listener. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the session. And if there are any questions, I will be glad to take it.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, it was just a wonderful session from your side. You know, you spoke for more than just 60 minutes in a continuous flow, you know, without taking a break. I was just observing all these things. And for speaking to us is not a simple deal, ma'am. It's so nice to hear from you. So, we are just having a single question right now to put you on for this topic. Ma'am, the question goes, I understanding the right question at the right time is that key. So question that are asked to make the person speak more and explain more to us. Understand clearly rather than closing the other person through process of his requirements. Is that the right understanding? Could you please explain on this little further?
I cannot hear you properly, Bhavi ma'am. Can you put it in the chat?
Yes, ma'am. That is already in the chat box.
Okay, I'm not able to. 1 minute. Yeah, I'm just seeing the question. I understand asking right questions at the right time is the key. Questions are asked is to make the person speak more and explain more for us to understand clearly rather than closing other person's thought process or his requirement. Yes, so I think a perfect understanding. Whoever had this question, your understanding is very right. So when we say asking the right questions at the right time is like whatever is the subject matter of the conversation which the speaker is saying, you are just trying to reconfirm, making that person open up in the conversation just to understand more about the situation. That is what asking the right questions at the right time. As you rightly pointed out, it is not closing the other person's thought process, or it is not abruptly cutting the person short. That exactly is not the intention of asking questions. If that answers your question.
Okay. That's thank you so much, ma'am. On this topic, you gave us a good clarity. Now there are no further more questions, and I would like to close up this session right now. So, ma'am, it was a great honor to be a part of this wonderful webcast on effective listening skills, the power of effective communication, organized by the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee (ICAI). On behalf of the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee ICAI, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, CA Shraddha Ravindran ma'am, for her enlightening session, and a wide round of applause and a thanks to the organizing ma'am. Such a insightful topic. You made it so light, and for everybody this has become one of the important tools to understand that how the effective listening can deeply take us to the effective means of communication. And you rightly said, ma'am, in your closing wrapping sessions, that once you are doing it everything from your heart daily by practicing regularly, this will lead you to a great success. So thank you, ma'am, once again for such a remarkable note that you have given in small topics across the whole sessions. And it is very important for everyone who would be listening this more carefully to understand how communication can be better molded if we are effective listener. So I thank you, ma'am, once again for such a wonderful session. I thank all the other stakeholders under the webcast, and to make this a memorable one. Finally, but not lastly, I would thank all the people who are present here for helping us and making this webcast a grand success. I will also like to thank Dr. Sambit Kumar Mishra sir and his team, technical support team, who was there with us for 2 long hours, giving us the best technical support. Thank you, everyone. Signing off tonight. Good day to everyone. Bye from CA Bhavi Thakkar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye bye.